Are Izzy and Stacy actually going to get married? Are Lydia and Milton actually going to get married? Well, I have a few thoughts that I thought would be fun to share, and I wanted to do it before the finale that comes out on Friday. So, welcome to my predictions of Love is Blind finale. Now, let's dive in. I think I mentioned before, I love all things pop culture, so of course I have been watching the latest season of Love is Blind. Now, I do want to make a note because it is dealing with real people. I am very aware that this is highly edited and it's reality TV. So we are going to see what the producers want us to see. And I'm not assuming nor pretending to know the actual human behind the camera. So with that said, here are my thoughts on who's going to make it and who possibly is not going to make it at the end of this. Let's first start with Lydia and Milton. Now, Lydia is 30 years old, Milton is 24. When it comes to Lydia, I think one of her biggest struggles and hurdles that she has and she's going to continue to have to overcome is her possible anxious attachment that we see throughout the series. One of the big indicators of somebody who struggles with anxious attachment is they cling on and they cling on fast. So much so, though, they can cling on to things that are not healthy for them. Let's take, for example, when Lydia first started the pods, she fell hard for Izzy, seemingly right off the bat, so much so though she was ready to go all in, and I think she was all in until he had said, hey, I'm not feeling this, and it was really hard for her to mentally and emotionally transition. Take her and Uche, for example. Now, again, I could do a whole video on Uche, but I won't. But there was a really unhealthy, toxic dynamic where I don't think Uche is innocent in any of this. I also do think, though, Lydia had probably unhealthy tendencies to hold on to something, even though it possibly was not good for her. I think there's this root of fear of being rejected or being left or being abandoned, especially when it comes to a significant other. The other thing with Lydia that I think plays into her dynamic is she's really emotional. Now, emotions are wonderful. I talk about that all the time. We are meant to feel our emotions. I think where Lydia struggles, though, is she not only feels them, she is led by them. If she feels that somebody wronged her, that is her truth, and she goes off of that. And I think for Lydia, a lot of times her feelings are dictating her behavior, her beliefs, so on and so forth. Now, at the beginning of Love is Blind, I think Lydia was kind of portrayed as the crazy one or the one that was going to cause all this trouble. I do think there is stuff she has to work on and grow in and mature in. I don't think she's as maybe crazy or maybe as unhinged as we initially were led to believe at the beginning of Love is Blind. Now, again, does she need to grow? 1000%. But do I think that there's potential to be a healthy version of who she is? I think so. I think she's got to find first how to manage emotions, how to recognize the unhealthy attachment style, and really work on that core. So whoever she's in relationship with, it will be much healthier for her. With Milton, who is 24 years old, comes off really mature, but I think there's a difference between coming off mature and coming off rigid. In the last 2 episodes, we were introduced to Milton's family, and obviously, again, we only saw a few minutes of the family dynamic, but it was pretty clear to see that when it comes to Milton and his family dynamic, it's really rigid. It's very focused on tangible achievement. And so when it comes to academics, there's high expectation. When it comes to probably financial achievement, there's high expectation, jobs, all that good stuff. And I think there's nothing wrong with wanting your kids to achieve. However, it can't be at the price of completely avoiding or dismissing any kind of emotional attachment or bond. When it comes to Milton and emotions, I think he really struggles to be connected emotionally to himself and to others around him. And I think that's a learned thing. If you watch the family dynamic, it's very structure and order, but when it comes to emotion or when it comes to your heart, it's not viewed as sometimes even necessary. And with Milton, I would say he probably comes off mature or more rigid because that idea of a young and free and enthusiastic child probably wasn't encouraged in a way that a healthy family dynamic would encourage that. I think when it came to Milton and Lydia, or Milton choosing Lydia, if you watch the dynamic between Milton's mom and Milton's sister, those are very strong female leads in his life. And I think with Lydia, there was some connection to being a strong female lead in his life. Now, I think a struggle that Milton and Lydia are going to have, and I've already seen maybe some snippets of it, is Lydia can sometimes fall into mom role for Milton versus wife role. And if they get married, I think that's something that they're going to have to figure out and kind of work through that dynamic. I think Lydia is going to have to learn to trust Milton. I feel like Milton's very honest and what he says he means kind of thing. And Lydia's going to have to learn to lean into that instead of assume worst case scenario. I think with Milton, he's going to have to learn how to emotionally engage with Lydia and let her be seen and heard in moments where she feels really overwhelmed. Because I think sometimes Milton has come off dismissive. I don't think like maliciously, but it can come off like that because of his rigidness or his inability to emotionally connect. He's very much black and white thinking and rigid in how he approaches situations. And that's going to be helpful for Lydia. I think if they get married, Milton is going to help be the calm to Lydia's storm. And I think Lydia could maybe encourage some emotional connection and encourage the emotional side of Milton. So, do I think Milton and Lydia are going to get married? I do. I think that both of them are going to say yes at the end of this. Do I think they're ready for marriage? I don't know. Probably not. Again, from what we're seeing, from the lens that we're seeing through, I think there needs to be a lot of growth and things discovered before they say I do. But I do think they're going to say I do. So now let's talk about Izzy and Stacy. There's so much to say and so little time. We'll start with Stacy. When it comes to Stacy, there is a lot of things that just hurt my heart seeing when it comes to her. And I'm not talking about the orange blush, but the way she treated Johnny in that whole scenario, I was confused on why she came so hard at Johnny. Now, I'm not Team Johnny. I think Johnny needs a lot of healing and needs to figure out why she chooses unhealthy people to be in a relationship with, all that stuff. But the way she just attacked, not only did she attack her, but then she weaponized the friend group against Johnny as well, saying like, everybody hates you, we talk about it. And my impression was that I don't think everybody hates Johnny actually. So I think Stacy can be really mean and aggressive. I also think though that's a protection mode. I think Stacy has a really hard time emotionally connecting to maybe harder emotions, whether it's disappointment, whether it's fear. So maybe she goes straight to anger. This also can come off when she's having conversations with Izzy. Sometimes she can come off really harsh. And I think sometimes instead of effectively communicating, hey, I'm really hurt that you're not following through with this, or hey, I feel disappointed because I feel like this was said in the pods and this is not being done in real life. I think her intent is to try to keep people accountable or keep Izzy accountable, but I think the way she does it is not emotionally in a healthy way, and it can come off really intense. And I think also with her family dynamic, watching the sisters and the mom, very unique take on what their role is versus their significant other's role. Dad is the provider in that family, and he's encouraged his girls to do well or marry well or both. And from what I see and hear, I think Stacy is financially in a good place. And I think for her, the expectation is I need my partner to not only be in the place that I'm in financially, but even be in a greater place than I am in financially. I think with Stacy, she majors on the minor things and minors in the major things. I think she dismisses or overlooks like core things that need to be discussed or talked about, or things that they probably should have discussed in the pods. But the tendency in the pods for them was to talk about all the physical stuff, when in reality they should have also addressed a lot of the internal stuff as well. Physical stuff will fade. Internal belief and core and who a person is and what makes them is something that's going to outlast everything. It's okay to have ideas and goals for your partner. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think managing expectations though, and not making certain things everything. So I think with Stacy, she's got to work on her ability to connect emotionally to the harder emotions and to be able to communicate that. And I think too, recognizing it's good to have expectations on our partner, but making those expectations more important than being able to fly first class to wherever you want to go, whenever you want to go. That's more fun things and byproducts of a good person. I don't think that makes a good person. When it comes to Izzy, whew, from episode 1 or so, in my mind, he was too smooth. He was always just too smooth, smooth talker. And I think the smoother the talker, the more that they're hiding. And I feel like that's become more evident as these episodes have gone on, and we see Izzy kind of revealing weird things at weird times and still hiding a lot. I think with Izzy, he struggles with compulsively lying. Two indicators of him lying, if you watch the episodes, is he will bite the inside of his cheek or like kind of hold his mouth in a way that it seems like he's holding on to something, or he will also like move his knee rapidly, not in like an ADHD way either. If you watch the episode where Stacey is talking to his mom, it almost looks like he's scared his mom's gonna spill something about him to Stacey. And so watching his behavior is really odd. And I think the other thing with Izzy that is not great, or maybe a red flag, is sometimes he will take the narrative and twist it to where he becomes like the woe is me or the victim. With Stacey and the whole argument of, why aren't you doing dates, or why aren't you doing this, this, and this? It seems ridiculous. I hear that. I think though Izzy smooth talked a lot in the pods and told and probably said things like, every night we're gonna have dates and I can do this for you and I can do that for you. And when Stacey was holding his feet to the fire, it turned into, well, I guess I'm just not good enough, and it turned into the woe is me instead of recognizing like what she was actually saying. I'm assuming what was talked about in the pods is not being followed up in real life, and that's something that really bothers Stacey, which rightfully so. But I think with Izzy, he turns it into, oh, I guess I'm just not good enough. And I think sometimes he can play that really manipulatively. So sometimes Izzy can come off emotionally manipulative. And I also think, too, the whole financial thing is shady. Shady, shady, shady. $3,500 for me is not a reason to be upset. So I think there's a lot more to the story that we are not getting. With that being said, the whole woe is me, poor me kind of mentality, I think Izzy is going to use that to say no to Stacey at the end of this whole thing. I think he's going to use it as like, oh, I couldn't love you enough. I just couldn't do enough. I was never enough for you. And that's going to make him look, in his mind, him look good. And I think Stacey's actually going to say yes. I think Stacey struggles with perfectionism so much so, though, where she would rather say yes at the altar even though she knows it's wrong, and then maybe down the road get divorced, versus saying no and having to admit she made a mistake and possibly looking like a fool in front of everybody. I think Stacey would still say yes to keep, namesake and to keep things looking a certain way. I think Izzy's going to say no to play the woe is me, poor victim card. Again, these are just my guesses. So do I think that Stacey and Izzy are going to get married? No. Do I think they should get married? No. And so those are my thoughts as I'm watching Love is Blind. And I'm interested to see what the finale brings us. I'm interested to see how the couples kind of wrap it all up. I will say this has not been my favorite season of Love is Blind, but obviously I still watch it. So I'm interested to see, obviously, the finale, but then the reunion, like to see everybody together and what comes out about Uche and Aaliyah, which I'm so glad that they're not together. Like I said, I could do a whole video on Uche, but I won't. And so I think there's going to be a lot of different dynamics at play when the reunion comes out. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Like I said, I know it's not the norm and I know it's not on a Monday, but I wanted to get this done before the finale so I can make my predictions, and then we will follow up after the finale. I would love to hear your thoughts on these couples. I would love to hear your thoughts on who's going to make it, who's not, all that good stuff. Be sure to leave a comment down below. If you like all things mental health, faith, therapy, or pop culture, I would love for you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and turn on your notifications. That way you guys are notified when brand new videos are up and ready for you to enjoy. As always, be sure to tune in next week for more mental and emotional health tips, tricks, and information. Until next time, guys.